life. That's normal. I'm like, well, honey, that ain't normal. I'm sorry, but that is not normal.
Wow.
Anybody who tells you once a week is normal is lying. That's not normal.
Wow.
So I have a lot of people.
I can't even imagine that.
I know. I have a lot of people who come in and they're like once a week. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And usually within 1 or 2 adjustments, they're like at least every other day.
Is there
if not
like
every
a
day.
kink or?
Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's nervous system. Sometimes there's an impingement on the nerve that goes to the colon. So there's not good enough communication between the bowel and the brain. It's not getting the right signals. Sometimes it's nutritional.
Right.
Sometimes it's a lack of magnesium. Sometimes the ileocecal valve is closed between the small and large intestine and it has to be reopened. And
how does that happen? Do you have to get surgery?
Oh, no. I do that manually.
Oh, good. Okay.
I do that in my office. That's
good.
Easy peasy. And then people can poo for lack of a better term. There's probably a better term, but they can poo, which is awesome because because you got to get them out, right?
Right.
Leave the toxins in, and what happens? You reabsorb your own body's waste. That's what happens.
Right.
If it's there more than a day or two,
sick and it builds up.
It makes you sick. It puts pressure on the liver and the kidneys trying to detoxify you all the time. So then they're not ready to deal with the other issues that they have to deal with. It's like, gosh, I wish this woman would poo so I don't have to keep messing with that. I'd like to be able to focus on blood. I'd like to be able to focus on sugar. I'd like to be able to, your liver. He's poor little liver. He's all his time's taken up dealing with your darn old toxins building up, reabsorbing your own waste. It's terrible. But what happens is then you become toxic.
But it regrows. Your liver regrows.
Oh, eventually it will, yeah. But when you reabsorb your own toxins, that can cause headaches.
Right.
That can cause migraines.
Because your body doesn't like that, and it's poison.
It is poison. That's exactly what it is. You know, better out than in. It's got to be out. You can't.
So
leave it in.
that's another reason. Now I'm going to plug you now. That's another reason why it's really good to go to you, because you don't just look at one symptom.
Right.
And you look at how your whole body, not your whole body, the person's whole body is functioning and where the actual problem could be coming from.
Exactly.
Instead of masking it. And so.
Yeah. And chiropractors have a lot of success with migraines. But if it's because you have a cranial bone that is misaligned, you have to adjust that cranial bone. Some will tell you, oh, you just need to get your neck done and it'll go away. Well, yeah, it might go away temporarily, but until that cranial bone is actually put back in place too, likely you will have episodes.
So do you do that?
Oh yeah. We adjust. I adjust every bone. I mean, if your ear needs it, it's getting pulled and it's going to pop. It's, if your big toe's out of alignment, your big toe's getting realigned. I mean, it's just, you got to do what you got to do. I realign teeth too. I had that brings me to my other story about the cranial adjusting. One of my super, super serious cases, I just had recently come in. Her entire skull was off. How do I put this? It's like somebody drew or, cut her skull in half down the front of her face, pulled the right side forward and the left side backward. So from the front, she had a big kind of bulbous forehead and right side of the cheek. Everything was forward. And then the left side was sunk back. And then from the back, she had a big bump on the left side and the right side was pushed in forward. So you could see it was like completely shifted. And she had been having migraines, severe migraines, probably most of her life. And she had been to dentists and she had been to doctors and she had been to all kinds of different professionals trying to get this taken care of. The best they could come up with was a bite guard. It basically is a retainer that spreads her palate apart constantly so that she can have some kind of relief from these migraines. And if she did not wear that, she would have the most intense, horrific migraine constantly.
That poor woman.
Oh, yeah. It was terrible. And her life, I mean, she's young and she's, beautiful and she's got children and she's got a husband. And And she has these terrible migraines. And, it's like, it's so sad to see somebody debilitated at such a young age because of these things. And she just would plug on, though. I mean, such a superhero, this woman. She's a beautiful person and just a superhero when it comes to taking care of others and being a good mom and caregiver and all that. Super important to her. And then she's got all this struggle with this pain. And so the first time I adjusted her, I'm like, wow, your head, it's really off. So it's not just about your mouth and your soft palate. It's about the entire skull shifting. The right side shifted forward. And I mean, it was probably an inch. This was significant. This was not, you could see it. I mean, it was visually significant. So we adjusted. And that first day, I got kind of rough with her because, I mean, I hate to put it that way, but, I mean, I had to move those bones. And so I did it manually, which is not super comfortable, but it's not the worst thing in the world either. Probably on a pain scale, using the activator, probably about a 1. Using your hands for it, maybe a 3 or 4. So it's not horrific, especially compared to the pain that she was suffering from. And she was like, oh, that's
nothing. She probably had a
to...
huge tolerance.
Right. But, I mean, for me, because I'm such a gentle adjuster, I'm like, oh, Lord, I hate to have to do this, but I really have to do this. Like, I have to. So I did it, and it was significant response. Second visit she came in, it was slightly shifted again. Not bad. But like you were talking about earlier, Deb, the muscles have memory. So it was trying to pull it back out. And she had been faithfully wearing her bite guard. And it was, it wasn't like bothering her all the time anymore. Like before, it would keep the main part of the headache away. But it still, she always felt constant pressure because that bite guard was pushing her mouth, pushing her palate, trying to do the job that had to be done from the outside. It was trying to do the job from the inside that I had to do from the outside to move the skull. And so I saw her the other day. She came in. She just called me. She happened to be in town. So she's like, oh, I just want to check up. This is her 3rd visit. Comes in. She's like, I'm fine.
Isn't that wonderful?
I don't have any problems up there. I'm having problems down lower. It's different. I've had that too, but I haven't thought it was as significant. So I haven't really had you work on that, but I want you to work on that now. Well, what was cool about that was the skull and the pelvis are pairs. So when one thing happens to one, the other one will respond. And usually it's opposite. So I was like, really? I didn't know you were having those problems. Let me look at your pelvis. Sure enough, shoot, Deb. It was exactly opposite. Her right side of her pelvis was back and her left side was forward. And I was like, it's the same thing. It's mimicking. It's the same thing.
They're like sister cities.
They're like sister cities. And they love one another so much that when one's miserable, the other one has to feel it too.
Isn't that something?
Crazy.
So you changed this woman's life.
I feel like I have helped her tremendously. Have I changed her life in a month? I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask her that. But judging from the way she's acting, her energy, her smile, her thankfulness towards me, I would say yes.
That's wonderful.
Done a huge help for her.
There's chiropractic can help so many people.
It is.
For things you don't even think. Like I wouldn't have thought to go to a chiropractor for that.
Yeah.
Thank goodness she did.
Well, and again, that's word of mouth because that was a friend of a friend of a friend. I mean, I meet people. I don't do a lot of advertising. This is the most advertising I really do because, I mean, I would rather somebody hear about me from a loved one who's been to me, who knows that I'm going to help them rather than somebody right off the street.
Because that trust is already built.
Exactly.
Right. You don't have to go through that.
And to be honest with you, people off the street kind of like they don't get me. Like they don't really understand. They're
so
like,
you have to explain a lot, right?
Yeah, because I am so different than the average chiropractor and anybody else they've ever seen. Just, come on in and, nothing against the other chiropractors. It's just that me being a specialist in doing the whole body, it's so very different for people. And sometimes they just can't wrap their minds around
Right,
it. You know?
right.
So, but it's always good. It's always good, and it's always amazing to me how much better people can get. In fact, I tell people all the time, I've got the best job ever because I got a front row seat to your miracle. Like literally, I get to watch you heal right in front of my eyes. It's pretty amazing.
It is. Yep, and you're good. You're good. So, you want to hear my question?
We have to. We are talking about sinuses at the moment.
Right. So, how do you feel about neti pots?
Oh, neti pots. You know, I really like the theory behind neti pots. I think that it's smart.
Because you want to keep you want to keep it clean.
Yes, you want to keep it clean. The nose is a filter. The hairs trap things so that they don't get into your lungs. So it only stands to reason you need to wash that out. I mean, I believe in that. I think you should wash it out. I don't think you should put things in your neti pot other than saline solution. A lot of people want to add oil and do this and that. Man, that could be a little detrimental. That could burn too. I'm just saying, depending on what you picked. But I would just stick with regular, good old distilled water, purified water, saline, whatever you use. Just the plainest of stuff, just to rinse it out.
So, and this is, I think, really important. Do not use tap water.
No.
Never use tap water.
No.
Always distilled.
I would do distilled. I would do distilled or reversed osmosis water, which is my favorite. But I think that, you know, if you're using a neti pot, you already know the benefits of it. Mm-hmm. Like people who have never used one, they don't understand because they've never been there. But when you use one and you start to see how it cleans you out and it keeps you from having so many allergies and it keeps you well, you know, and clear, then that's awesome. The benefits sort of speak for themselves.
Right. Right. And I've noticed a difference in some of my friends that had horrible sinus headaches and horrible sinus infections, and they were advised by a holistic practitioner to use neti pots, and big difference in them as well.
Yeah, for sure. People who have allergies, have allergens, you know, a lot of times the doctors make it seem like, oh, you're allergic to this stuff, you know, so you've got to take these allergy pills all the time, or you've got to take allergy shots every week. Well, but what if we minimize our intake of those allergens? Mm-hmm. What if we can use an air purifier and, you know, clean our house where it's not dusty all the time, and use a neti pot and reduce the allergens that we're taking in and all of those things, you know? If we can do all of that, a lot of times we can eliminate a lot of the symptoms of allergies rather than having to go in and just get a cover up.
Exactly. And I would rather do all of those things than take a pill.
Me too. Mm-hmm. So much more. I was just talking to a fella today. He's a funny man. I was having to tell him what he had to avoid in his diet because he was having some toxicity reactions. Mm-hmm. He was having some liver, some kidney, and some skin. And I'm like, liver, kidney, skin. Our major 3 detoxifying organs. So what is your body trying to get rid of? And the first thing I always think of is foods. Because if you have a food sensitivity, then your body treats it as if it's a toxin. Right. So I'm like, oh, something you're eating is bugging you. So I started muscle testing him, and I told him what he couldn't eat. And he got, you know, lippy with me because he's a funny man, and he's an older fella, but he's got a great sense of humor. So he's like, oh, you're taking everything away from me. Why? And I mean, I took
all
like
his special treats.
Yeah. And I took like maybe 6 things out of his diet. And I just laughed at him, and I go, well, let me put it to you this way. Isn't it much easier to eliminate a couple things out of your diet rather than take a bunch of pills to cover up the symptoms of the things that you're eating in your diet?
And what did he say?
He said, oh, yeah, it's a lot simpler. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, then lay down.
He just had to give you a hard time. there's people like that.
Shut up and lay down.
So
No,
we talked about a lot of stuff today. I really enjoyed that spleen.